have to see it for yourself. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to do. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
So thank you for being here, and please explain with the attendees why you choose these videos.
Sure.
Yeah.
So how many of you have seen the movie The Matrix? Can you please raise your hand? Oh, a fair amount, okay. I thought I was the oldest one here. So the reference to The Matrix, I think, is interesting to me because in this movie it's about living a life knowing the truth and living a life that is just an appearance. And one is easy and the other one is hard. And sometimes you need to find meaning in life and you can make different choices that lead you to a different path. And so I think to some extent, when you choose to become an entrepreneur, it's taking the red pill. It's about finding out the truth about yourself, your fears. It's about trying something very hard, maybe failing, and that's scary. But sometimes it could be very rewarding, and it's kind of no turning back. I think once you experience it, you're gonna have a hard time going backward. You always have to move forward from there. So that was the reference why I thought it as talking to a crowd of people that are either entrepreneurs themselves or want to become entrepreneurs. It's an interesting reference as to which one you're going to choose in your life. And I struggled a lot with that choice throughout my life. And so I think that's a personal feeling, but I think it's probably one that everybody experiences when you're thinking about, should I do this, should I not? And you always will have choices in your life, and so that refers to those choices you make every day.
So you chose red pill, right?
I don't know, I'm still trying to figure it out. Life is pretty good, it sounds like a dream, but... So, I guess, I was fortunate that I took the chance, maybe already I was, taking risk in life. I figured I'd try, maybe I get lucky, maybe I find this company that's going to send me abroad. And at the time I was working with Société Générale, which is this very big bank in France, like Bank of America in the United States, and worked really hard over there to try to stand out and have them want to send me to the United States. And of course, the United States was the most desirable place to go, so it was very competitive, very hard, and two of us, out of all the people that were working there, at my age, in my promotion, if you will, got sent to the United States. So one was sent to New York and one was sent to San Francisco.
Was it like 1990?
That was in 98. So I started working in 96 at Société Générale, and 98 is the time where after basically they tried everything. I was an intern, I was a short-term contractor. They were delaying and delaying the official decision to send me over there.
So when was your first time to be interested in a startup in Silicon Valley? And what made you get into this industry? Because you got a stable job in the bank.
Yeah, so to me, I studied corporate finance because once you understand the numbers and finance, you can understand a lot of businesses. People say follow the money, and if you can track money, you can understand the reasons why things are happening. And so very much, the corporate finance allowed me to understand macroeconomic trends, the economy, the companies themselves, and so investment banking was a pretty interesting job in that way, because you learn companies, you learn to value them, what makes them valuable, what makes them fragile, and you help entrepreneurs, right? You help those people either sell their businesses, you help them acquire others to stay competitive. So it's a very rewarding career from that standpoint. But I was also interested in technology, so it was investment banking in the technology space. So moving in 98 in San Francisco, I can tell you, that's 2 years before the bubble burst. Those were the crazy days, right? I mean, honestly, you didn't realize back then, but in 1998 in Silicon Valley, it was like champagne flowing everywhere, right? You go to every parties, everything is free, people throw you t-shirts, everybody's partying, everybody's feeling good, you see Ferraris in the streets. Honestly, people were having a great time. Yeah. And so, then when you live over there, it's really hard not to be falling in love with technology, because everything around you is about technology. Everybody talks about technology. So I think at some point you catch the barriers and you say, other people are starting businesses, so maybe why not me? That's something I always wanted to do. I knew that at some point in my life I wanted to have my own business or try. Maybe watching my parents, both in real estate, so a bit like a lawyer, they run their own business. So to me that independence was very interesting, but I wanted to try something else, something of my own. I wanted to do my own path.
You joined startup, right?
So, yeah, so after several years in investment banking, I joined a startup. So in 2001, I basically joined the first startup. And so I went to a company that had about 10 employees. It was a data mining software company. It was applied to the financial sector, so I felt comfortable enough that I knew the space I was going into. And being a product manager is pretty interesting as a position because you're a bit of a mini CEO. You're CEO of your product line. You decide, what's going to go into the product, what features going to make it. You manage this, and it was a role I felt pretty comfortable stepping into because I had the expertise of what the software should do. Right? You can think about a software as a human being making actions step by step in order to process some information and deliver results. And so that was my first experience in the startup. Yes.
So it was acquired by some.
Yes. So that's the happy ending, right? So like in the meantime, here I am in a company of 15 people. We have, engineers in Ukraine. I've got a COO in New York. I'm sitting in San Francisco, and I've got database QA in Kuala Lumpur. So that's in 2000 and let's see. That was 2001, 2002. So about for 3.5 years, I'm managing a team across the world in a very small company, very little money, struggling to pay, salaries. You don't know if you're going to raise more money to pay people. A lot of stress, but very, a great learning experience. And then yes, after
what age? When were you? There was like a twin.
So I was, let's see. Age me now. I was 25, 26, 27 around that time. And so again, learning a lot. And then the company, we pivoted once, which was great. It wasn't called a pivot. Now it's a very popular term. But we couldn't find anyone to buy the software because the industry was, the market was terrible. Nobody would want to buy more software. But we realized we had internal technology that was helping us to scale as a small startup. And we thought that technology could actually be very, very useful to companies like Thomson and Bloomberg that were doing a lot of that work manually. So that software automated that. And so we started selling that software instead of selling the initial software we had built. And that's how we survived another day and then continued iterating on that until we got acquired by Emergent. Yeah, so that's 3.5 years later, working in that company, finally seeing an exit. It wasn't a big exit, nobody made much money, but it was an amazing learning experience.
So what do you see, from the point of view right now, that you can see that time would be a little different. If you go back to that age, based on the knowledge right now,
yeah.
What are you going to do differently about just sustaining the startup, keep going for 10 years, or selling this company to others?
No, that's a good question. I think at the time, in 2005, you're talking about a very different world as well into the amount of resources it takes to build a company. And so, you have to hire a lot of people, spend a lot of hours, infrastructure cost was a lot higher than it is today. So I think, and then looking even at the way we were developing software, we were using what you call waterfall techniques stack, and so it would take forever to roll out a feature, and every time I had a new feature, something else was broken. I'm like, how does that work? We're never going to get this right? And now you have new techniques to go agile, and you can iterate a lot faster, you can roll out code a lot more often, the infrastructure is there to communicate. So I don't know if I could change the way we've done things. I think we did the best we did with the environment we had. I wish I knew more. I think I was still, a rookie. I was still learning how to do things on the fly. But I think you do all the time when you're in a startup. There's a lot of things you don't know. You have to figure it out. And I think that's part of the education, and we touched on that, but I think education is about teaching you how to think and how to go search information you don't know and have that curious mind to ask yourself, what do I need to know, what I don't know, and where can I get it, and where can I get the information?
Do you think in startup education part is really important part among the members?
I think it plays an important role, and I'm actually, I think I'm disappointed to see that it hasn't evolved yet. I think Korea, especially, like France, we true believers in traditional education, highest standards of education, highest achievements, very competitive, and somehow you were led to believe that because you come out from the best schools and you have the best diploma, that you're going to be the most successful in life. Well, sorry, it's not true, right? It helps. You need to, it helps you having some basis and foundation as to how to think and how to address a problem. But unfortunately, maybe in Korea, like in France, we teach too much theory, not enough practice. And it should be result-oriented. It's like a lot of people, I think, around the world look at America's ways of doing R&D because the way they spend their money is about applied research. It's not so much about for the pure sake of doing research. And so that's a practical aspect, I think, in the American society that can be really learned from, which is, studying for studying, great, but, I think when you can apply your knowledge to impact people's life, I think it's a better way to use it.
Okay, and then you go back to the bank again, right?
Yes, my career has been back and forth.
After getting married with Sumi?
Yes, absolutely. I met my wife in San Francisco, hence my tie to Korea. She's from Korea, born, raised, educated here. We met in San Francisco, so I crossed the Atlantic, she crossed the Pacific. We met halfway, I said, okay, we're even. But, so met Sumi, got married, and basically was at that time looking for a job. Like literally I was like, okay, I just got married, I don't have a job, will she marry me still? Maybe. And I think at that point I'm like, okay, maybe I can do something, maybe I can start my own business. Maybe that's the time, things happen for a reason in life, and I'm like, okay, let's do this, let's add an idea. I think because I didn't study in America, I didn't have a network. If you ask me what's the value of an MBA today, I say it's the network. It's the people you're going to meet there. That's the most important thing. So go party, meet a lot of people, have a lot of fun, because those people are going to be very important in your life. And so I didn't have that because I did all my education in France. And I think moving to America, that was one of the things I struggled with. I felt isolated, didn't have as much network as other people. Through job, I would meet people, of course. But that idea I had was it was twofold. It was because I wanted to do sports and meet people to do sports with, and I was frustrated that in 2005, you couldn't find people real time over the internet that could play tennis with you tonight at 6 p.m. that had the right skill sets to have a good time. And so I started a business around that topic from home. But I also felt that it was an interesting way to meet people, because you don't go and meet with them because they work at Google, but if they happen to work at Google, that's pretty cool. And so it's an interesting way to network with people. It's like around your passion, around your activities, not so much about business straight on,
Okay. So back to like after the first startup, you joined the bank, or you do your own startup the next time?
So after the first startup, I went back to banking.
Yeah.
And so my first part in banking was about merger and acquisitions. So I was helping entrepreneurs basically either acquire other businesses, or I was helping them finally realize, that exit that everybody talks about, and getting wealthy and thinking about the next step.
When was the biggest exit that you deal with at the time?
So I did a merger of France Telecom with Equans, which was $1 billion merger.
I forget what it is.
France Telecom and Equans it's a software for. It was actually in the data mining space as well, and information technology, and so they merged two businesses and created $1 billion worth company. So I also, worked on the sale of Expedia stake from Microsoft to the home shopping network. So as an investment banker, you work on very large deals, and you get to see just a small fraction of the whole deal process, which also was frustrating me because I always wanted to see more, do more. And it's a world where you have your bosses and they have this role and you only see a piece of it. So I think I was always a bit in a hurry to see more and handle more and do more. And I think that's why I didn't take the status quo. That's also one of the reasons I left France and I went to the United States, is because I felt in France it's like who your father is matters more than your skill sets. And I think in Korea you can relate to that. You can say, well, this guy, because his father is so-and-so and he knows so-and-so, is going to get promoted, when quite frankly I'm a lot better than he is and I should be promoted. Right? When France is very much like that, and maybe it's like that in Korea as well. In America, less so. In America, it doesn't matter which schools you come from, but if you're good at what you do, people are going to recognize that, and you're going to be encouraged, and you're going to be supported and promoted. And people will base their decision on your skills much more than on your background, your sexual preferences, doesn't matter, right? And so that's something I really respect in American society.
Okay, so the next step is that you just went out from the bank, right?
Yeah, so so banking, merger and acquisitions, startups, got acquired, great experience, and then decided to go back to banking to this time help entrepreneurs raise capital. So what drove me to that different product of investment banking is to now help entrepreneurs not sell their business, but actually help them realize their vision. And part of realizing that vision is to be able to have the financing to execute on their vision. And so I felt it was very interesting to me to work with smaller companies, helping them raising money from venture capitalist firms or hedge funds, and then with that cash being able to realize their vision.
So at that time, what do you think, what was the big obstacles for the entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley finding out something like a Series A or Series B or some exit strategy? What is the big obstacles that they face? Like network or strategic thinking?
I think a lot of the work we do as investment bankers is to, on one hand, you help them execute and support them when they're very busy running a business. So entrepreneurs get always frustrated because they want to run their business, but they have to go raise money, and they usually don't like that. If they could, they would choose not to ever raise money and continue building the business, but at some point you got to raise capital. And so they use investment bankers sometimes to help them do that. They help investment bankers to help them position the story of their product. They help them with valuation to understand, negotiating the deals. So it's almost like, when you have an argument with somebody, you want to have somebody in the middle, right?
So how do investment bank make money? From the
Sure. Investment bankers make money in very basic ways, in commissions. And so when you help...
the normal percentage of the commission?
So it depends. When you're raising capital, at the time, it might have changed, but at the time you're looking at about 6-7% for, pretty like 20, 30, $50 million raise. It could be lower when you go higher. And then when you look at smaller deals, because it's as hard to raise capital on small deals than on big deals, you tend to have maybe higher commissions. So I think the range might be anywhere between 5 to 11% on very small deals. And then when you look at merger and acquisitions, it's usually a much bigger transaction. You're selling the entire company, not just raising a small piece of equity. And so that usually ranges anywhere between 1.5% to 3%. I mean, just to give a ballpark, it really depends. But that's a commission, that's a success-based fee, by the way. So if it doesn't succeed, you don't get paid. So sometimes you work for months and it doesn't happen. So yeah, that's the role of investment bankers. But the one thing to mention, I think, because you should know, as an investment banker, when you don't get involved in early stage deals. You don't involve in seed round, you don't get involved in Series A round. First of all, because they're too small of a round. Actually entrepreneurs lose credibility. They go and hire a banker, or they have somebody representing them to raise money. At that stage, the investor wants to connect directly with the entrepreneur, doesn't want anyone in the middle.
So you did your work, that kind of things, and then you're moving into a real startup, right?
Yes. At that point, I'm basically I co-founded Inside Venture after that funding. Experience helping entrepreneurs from the companies. And so Inside Venture was a financial social network, and the mission was to help companies that are about to go public to connect with investors on the financial markets that have a long-term strategy. So the people that actually analyze the companies deeply, believe in the fundamental health of those companies, and invest for 2, 3 to 5 years. And so without getting too technical, what it does is that those people help you anchor your stock. It means that your stock is not going to fluctuate too much because someone owns a big piece of it and they're not selling it every day like hedge funds do. And so that's an important anchor, it's called an anchor, to have in your stock. So as an entrepreneur, you want people like that. And surprisingly, you would think that venture capitalists know about Wall Street and know about who those people are. They have no clue. They don't understand that well. They used to turn over the company to bankers to do that work. And they used to do it well. The challenge is now the banks are making more money with hedge funds that are trading very often and paying commissions on every share they buy compared to when they do an IPO or when they do a follow-on offering after an IPO.
So something like big happened after you founded some company, right?
Yeah, so talk about timing in life. Inside Venture was founded in 2008, in the summer of 2008, with my co-founder, and all of a sudden, Lehman Brothers, Bearstone goes down first, and then Lehman Brothers goes second. So the world as we know it stops, and you deal with it, right? It's like, on one hand, the interesting part for us was that we were trying to help those companies going public, and all of a sudden there was no IPO whatsoever. Basically no technology, it doesn't matter, not even technology companies, no company were going public in the United States for 6 months. And that got everybody worried, from the governments to the venture capitalist guys, because IPOs are very important in the ecosystem. And when you look from an investor standpoint, the companies that go public are the ones that are the home runs, right? The ones that are going to generate the best returns. There are very few, but when they do go public, they usually are the best returns for them. And so if you take those away, if you look at the overall performance of the venture industry, they don't perform so well without those IPOs. And so we were at an interesting time because we were telling VCs, look, you need to get to know those guys because these are the important guys, the stock market is broken. And so we got a lot of interest from those people at the time. So that helped us, but of course at the same time it hurt us, right?
So, and then like you sold that, right?
Yeah, so we had two parts of the business. One was to build a software to allow those people to do this networking and find out about those companies, and it was invitation only. It was the model of a membership club to invite only the good guys on Wall Street and share the best companies from the venture capitalist guys. And that was very controversial. A lot of bankers didn't like what we were doing. And on the other hand, we were doing this conference, and I know you know what it's like to pull a conference together, and that was extremely stressful. We had to invite people from New York to Santa Barbara, we didn't know if they were showing up, we had to find sponsors, we were totally underfunded as a startup. So we went through a lot of stress, but ultimately we pulled it together, it worked out, somehow there's a way things happen, and they come together, and then we got acquired, like within 3 months of that conference. Basically, Second Market came knocking on our door. We were struggling, we were trying to raise more capital because we were totally underfunded. The conference had left us with almost no money. And those guys said, we like what you're doing, we like the relationships you've built, and we see that as a pretty interesting strategic acquisition. And so we felt like it was a pretty good way to get out.
So we've been heard about your some founding stories, but backed by a finance field. You're trying to find doing startup based on linking some upper part of the investment and the other part of the real startup, right? So you can help the entrepreneurs can be in exit or find the good partners can be funded, right?
Yeah. So what that. Going back and forth really taught me to look at the end of the journey of a company when you get acquired, eventually, that you assume that's the end, or an IPO, and what happened next. And looking back to the early days of how you get financing to continue achieving your dream, so that I think as an entrepreneur, you owe it to yourself to make sure that you secure financing if you need financing to continue pursuing your dream. If you fail raising capital, then you failed yourself, because you basically can't pursue on that idea, but maybe the market is giving you a signal that that wasn't a good idea after all and you should focus on something else. And that's also not bad news. I think it's just about understanding and learning from the lessons, right? I truly believe that every challenges that you're faced with, there's a hidden opportunity within it that's as big or greater than the challenge you're facing. So always look at it from the bright side, or try to understand, why it happened, what can you learn from it, and what are the opportunities that are coming along with that challenge.
So let's move on to the real time that You just founded the BootstrapLabs, right?
Well, so I didn't found Bootstrap Lab. My friend
Okay,
Nikolai founded it 3.5 years ago. And so for the little story, the guy is a software hacker, college dropout, was building 3D graphic softwares in 1988, and had the guy been born in Silicon Valley, would be probably a billionaire along with a lot of the guys we know today. But he was born in little Sweden. And so the guy had a great run at building companies, being a CEO, a CTO, doing angel investing, brought his company public, and grew frustrated because after all of that, he always saw guys coming from Silicon Valley, surprisingly, raising a lot more money, having great marketing and strategy, maybe not as good a product, maybe not even as good a team, but somehow they were able to take over the world and conquer market shares and selling more and more when he was struggling to scale. So that's what set him on a journey to Silicon Valley. He said, what is it about Silicon Valley? What's going on over there? And when he went there, he quickly realized it's not the people. People are the same. Actually, half the people starting businesses in Silicon Valley are from somewhere else. They're not American, or they're second generation. And it's really the ecosystem. I think I talked about it yesterday. I think here there's a lot of initiatives from various players like yourselves, like new investors and VCs that are coming up online with the government that's trying to evolve that ecosystem to make it more entrepreneur friendly, which I think is a great thing. So we talk about maybe why Korea, what's happening now, and my vision for it. But yeah, I think that's really the aspect.
Yeah, so the audience will be interested about what is the BootstrapLabs and what are what's your business and what are
Yeah, so the learning again about Silicon Valley is you can build a company 3 times faster in Silicon Valley than you can anywhere else in the world.
What do you mean?
So 3 times faster. You can get feedback on your product faster, raise capital faster, fail faster. Either way, all those things are good. Information flows very quickly. People share information. You are building a startup, I'm building a startup, I'm going to share my information with you. I'm not going to see you as a competitor. So it's people shared information to make the pool of information bigger and greater, and it flows faster. And so that's extremely valuable when you build a business, especially early days, because early days you're earning money every day. Every day you're losing money, right? And so the faster you get to the information you need to have, the faster your customer responds, the faster you move.
So like you have the startup to expand their business into US market, right?
Yeah, so the platform we built is said, look guys, we believe smart people are everywhere around the world. No question about that. We also believe that innovation will happen everywhere around the world. It can come from Africa, it can come from Europe, it can come from Russia, it can come from Korea.
What about
any place.
Yeah, what about the trends that you accelerate?
So Prezi is a good example. We discovered Prezi when there were 5 people in the company, 3 founders, 2 early employees in Budapest, right? Mm-hmm. And those guys had raised a little bit of money, and we said, look, you really should be in Silicon Valley. We think you have something pretty special, but if you stay where you are, you're either going to die because you're not going to raise money, or you're going to remain very small, and somebody else is going to beat you to it. And so we convinced 2 founders to move to Silicon Valley. We worked with them.
You convinced them?
Yes, I mean at the time it's funny, you thought those guys would want to come, but they really had to tell them, Nikolai had to convince them it was the right move. So the guys moved themselves, came to Silicon Valley, and within, I think it was 9 months of being in Silicon Valley, those guys got an offer from Google to buy them. I mean, you're talking double-digit $1 million offer. I don't mention the amount here, but life-changing for those guys, right? Still a small company, and those guys had the guts to say, I mean, they were cash flow positive, they were making money already, and they said, look, we're still early. We think this product has a lot of potential, and we don't want to sell now. So those guys hold on to the company, and you can think, oh my God, they're crazy, right? They could have pocketed a few $1 million. They could have moved on and do something else. But good for them, because today those guys raised 14 million from Axel about 1.5 years ago, had a valuation that was 7 times what Google had offered, and they had 5 million users back then, and today they have 28 million users, acquiring 2 million users a month, growing like wildfire and very successfully. So I don't want to guess what the valuation is today, but it's a multiple of what they would have received if they had sold early.
So how you helped them at the time?
Yeah, so at the time, Nikolai really helped them from, relocating, starting to network in Silicon Valley, reincorporating the company in Delaware, because no investor in the US will give you money and give you a term sheet unless you're reincorporating in Delaware. That's just an hygiene factor for them. And he got also Jack Dorsey as an advisor to the company, which was very instrumental.
How did Jack Dorsey get involved?
So, Nikolai reached out to him and said, hey, I'm working on this really cool company, and luckily for us, Jack was in between gigs, right? He had left Twitter, and he hadn't started Square, and so he had a bit of extra time on his hand, and he right away liked the product, and he said, sure, I'll become an advisor. And that really helped the company be what we call social proof, right? In Silicon Valley, when you get people like that to validate that what you do is cool, you have a cool product, that really puts you on the map, and all of a sudden the trust around your company starts increasing. So we call that social proof.
Social proof.
And that's one of the key milestones you try to achieve as a company. You want to go from, customer development, validating your assumptions, launching your product, doing product market fit, and then you want to get some sort of social proof, and that comes in different shapes and forms. That comes from having well-known advisors joining you and advising you. That comes through angel investors that are well-known in the industry or in the sector and give you a bit of money for your company. And it's not about the amount of money they give you, by the way. It's really about their name associated with you and them spending a bit of time with you. And that's the most valuable part. And then it's about working on the scalable product market fit, which is a different stage than product market fit. And that's usually when you can start raising serious capital. When you have demonstrated that you can make $1 with that customer in that context, and you can find a 10,000 other customer just like this one, and you know exactly how to go talk to them or reach out to them, and you know how much it's going to cost you to approach them and how much money you're going to make by selling them something. So that's the stage where you start raising a lot of money. But the other thing you should not think, the way we help also companies is thinking about strategic partnerships. And because I've done a lot of...
You think about strategic partnerships?
Yeah, strategic partnerships, and those come in play a bit later, but when you think about distributing your product and creating value for your company, one way you can do this is actually by working with much bigger companies that can help you reach more people faster or customer faster. And so when you have Google, Oracle, Facebook, Twitter, all those guys around you, these are natural players that you want to go talk to, and if you manage to make deals with them, you can actually increase the value of the company significantly, right?
So about the go back to the sectors, what is there some a contract, like an agreement based on signing?
No.
Just the advisors, but
Yes. Absolutely, it's and Nikolai is probably the right person to talk to you about the details, but in Silicon Valley, people can say it's almost a handshake, right? In many parts of the world, you don't need to sign legal agreements. Someone says, I like you, I want, we agree that I can bring value to you, I'm going to be your advisor, and then I can list you on my board of advisors, and that's about it. Jack didn't even ask for any equity in the company, right? But would gladly give equity to him if he had asked, or maybe actually at the end he received some, I don't know the details. Nikolai would, but...
So how did Jack help the bridge?
Well, just the mere fact that he was an advisor, as I said, his name associated with the company is a game changer, right? Of course, he spent time with the founder, give them feedback on the product, what he could change, make introductions to other people he knew. So yeah, that definitely helps a lot.
Yeah. So in this case, in this part, the thing that I'm really interested about is the importance of the network. In your case, you're from Paris, and how you maintain the network in really strong type, and get some trust from the Google or some other guys like Jack Dorsey. This is not a thing that everybody is doing things so. How you manage the network that you have in the
Sure. So, as I said earlier, network is very important. And I think maybe because I suffered from the lack of network when I moved to the United States, I worked maybe harder than other people in trying to build it.
What do you mean harder?
Yeah, and so, today your best friend is LinkedIn, right? No question. And so you should be on LinkedIn, you should have a profile in English, and I repeat in English. and you got to network with people. You got to go to events like this. You got to talk to people, meet people, and maintain a relationship with them. Sure, you can't maintain a meaningful relationship with everybody, but in the United States, people are pretty good at maintaining just acquaintances. And if you remember what people do, and with LinkedIn now it's easy, you can always approach them with some context. And so if you approach them with a question that's relevant to them or you have an expertise, people are always very willing to help. And so, I think, you look at my LinkedIn profile today, I probably have 2,500 connections. And yeah, a lot of it came from the fact that I was very diligent, making sure I connect with people, that I worked as an advisor to help company raise capital, so we would go talk to 100 venture firms. And I would, as an M&A investment banker, I would go talk to a lot of general managers in divisions of technology companies to see if they were interested in buying this kind of technology and startups. So throughout my life, every move I made sure that I was building and evolving, diversifying my, what you call a Rolodex. In the old days, there was these little things where you store the business cards. But it's really your network, and I think the network is very important again because.
Yeah. So before going back to the BootstrapLabs, have you seen the reasons of failure of doing network in Silicon Valley? There are lots of guys coming from Japan or China or Korea or in Singapore or whatever.
Yeah.
Even from the US, there will be some guys and entrepreneurs who failed in networking, and they lose trust, or there will be some cases that they messed up because of a bad network behavior or.
I look absolutely. I think the only currency you have in life is trust, right? So especially when you're in business, it's like you need to be trustworthy, and if you're not, you are heading for a very hard life. And so it's okay to make mistakes, and sometimes you're overconfident, and maybe you might say things that are just half true, and by the time you meet that person again, you hope they're gonna be true. But yes, absolutely. I think to me, it's almost like you take two people that are identical, right? You take twins, and you put one that has a network and one that doesn't have a network. They are both equally intelligent. The one that has a network will obviously be more successful. It's just, it's pretty obvious. And so, yes, when you come from abroad and you come to Silicon Valley, you gotta start networking, you gotta look for common points with people, you gotta approach them with some interesting topics, right? Make the effort. It's not about sending a LinkedIn request that is the generic template. No, if you do that, people are gonna say, well, you don't value my time, because you don't spend even a minute of your time to customize the message you're sending me, which tells me a lot about the effort you're making to connect with me and how meaningful it is to you, right? So this little everyday behavior, if I was, it's almost like having those behavior and manners and respecting people's time and showing that you care is what makes the difference. So these human skills are one that you can pick up. Sometimes you have them in you, sometimes you need to learn them. And sometimes it comes because you make mistakes and people tell you, you haven't sent a thank you email. You just met that person, you didn't send a thank you email. Well, maybe you should. And by the way, that person emailed you right away, you should respond right away. Because if you wait a week to respond to that person, what message are you sending that person? You're saying, I'm too busy to respond to you. So I remember when I moved from France, what was pretty interesting to me was, I would go to a bar and I would meet people, and the first thing they would say, hi, my name is John and I work in this. I was like, okay, don't care, but it's kind of cool because now I know what you do, and when I know what you do, I can start thinking about, well, can we work together or not? And 80% of the time it's probably, well, there's no real interest in what you do and you don't care about what I do. But that's a very efficient way to quickly realize if there's business opportunities. And so I thought that was a brilliant way. I think that's why America is pretty fast at iterating and creating connections between people, because they are really good at saying, hi, my name's John and I'm a carpenter. Hi, I'm Paul and I'm a plumber. Great, let's do some business together. We're gonna build houses, right? And I think that's really how California also was built. And people ask me always this question, Silicon Valley, what's about Silicon Valley, right? And so there's so many things. There's not one answer, of course. People forget it took 50 years minimum to build Silicon Valley to where it's at today. And so when Korea and France and other countries around the world and London are trying to replicate Silicon Valley and say they're going to be the next Silicon Valley, I don't know if they're going to be the next Silicon Valley. I don't know what the next Silicon Valley looks like. What I know is that Silicon Valley keeps iterating and advancing faster, maybe, than these other places that are trying to copy it. So it's a combination of things, but one for sure is smart people from around the world choose to go live there. The critical mass of the ecosystem is there, and so that really helps. The people are willing to share information to help you. They really pay it forward. If they can help you, they will, and if they can't, they will put you in touch with someone that can hopefully help you. And so that really helps entrepreneur in the support system and accelerate successes by sharing information.
So get back to the basic that what's the program of the Bootstrap Lab that you run, and what's the differentiate from the like 500 startup or program or somebody like Spark Labs?
Sure, no, thank you.
Like helping like entrepreneurs.
So after Nikolai started Bootstrap Lab for about 3 years, what he really spent the time perfecting is what is required for a startup that is born outside of the United States to successfully relocate to Silicon Valley, to build a business, not by removing everybody from where they're from and coming to Silicon Valley, but actually just moving one of the founders in Silicon Valley and keeping the team where they're from. So you keep the heart at home, you're connecting to the schools, connecting to the governments, you know the culture, you know the language. This is a great asset. And by the way, when it's so hard to recruit people in Silicon Valley, it's even better. And by the way, if you happen to be in a low-cost country, even better. So, you know, take advantage of those strengths that you have, but make sure that if you're in the business of building a technology company, that where you're born doesn't define where you live. And so if you are in the business of building technology companies, you need to ask yourself, what is the most fertile ground and ecosystem for me to build this company successfully? And sometimes the answer will be Korea, but maybe it will be San Francisco, and maybe it will be, I don't know, somebody in Africa, somebody in Asia. We know how to do this, and so now we're trying to scale the model, and so we are raising a fund, a $50 million fund, in order to turn ourselves from an advisory platform into an investor, because we felt this is the best way to accelerate those companies and to put capital behind them and actually help them make that journey across the Atlantic or across the Pacific, depending where they're coming from, to come and establish themselves in Silicon Valley. And so our model is going to be to invest $500,000 into the companies initially, which is a significant amount. We don't want to be angel
Maybe
investors.
invest in $500,000?
Yeah, the first investment will be $500,000.
I thought that like seed.
So we call that seed plus, and the reason we call that seed plus is that, you know, $500,000 is we think we can do a lot with $500,000, and by the way, we're going to lead the terms of those investments, and we're going to invite co-investors, we're going to invite angel investors, getting to try that social proof I was talking about earlier, and then we're going to reserve a lot of capital for those companies. We're going to reserve $1.5 million for those companies. And so, again, investing with other people, you can look at the total capital available to those companies to be, say, about $4 million. And so when you look at the industries we focus on, which are software, internet distribution, and cloud infrastructure, you know, and we look at those sectors because they're obviously capital efficient, you can build a business with $4 million, and if you can't, you probably shouldn't continue investing into this business.
How do you solve the visa problem of the CEO of the company?
That's a big issue for me. A lot of people, of course, ask about this. So the way we do it is by, again, reincorporating those companies in the United States and attaching the visa of the founders with that new entity. So it's hard to do this, and sometimes we use even our own company, Bootstrap Lab, as somebody that supports those visa applications. So we've, again, figured out a process that seems to work. And I think we're doing a favor to America, and America is waking up to this fact, and they're saying, hey, we need to have a founder's visa. And so a lot of very senior people in Silicon Valley, and Mark Zuckerberg and Marissa Myers are actually pushing and lobbying to get founder's visa and allow people that want to build startups in America to be able to come and build them. They want to allow students that study in America, that might be Korean kids, instead of going back to Korea to build startup in Korea, to stay and get a visa to build it in the United States. So I think they would be well advised. People from around the world want to go study in the United States. Let those guys stay and build companies there.
Yes.
So we work on the visa, we relocate those people. So that's the investment strategy, right? We want to allow companies to power through the Series A crunch. And so my 2 cents on that is that there's no Series A crunch. You either have a company that has the metrics and the proof points, so you can raise capital, which means you have a thriving business and people want to finance you to continue to go to the next stage, or you can't get there and probably you shouldn't get funded. And because it's so cheap now to start a startup, that a lot of people are trying so many things that honestly half the ideas are pretty stupid, but it's okay, they're learning, and they're gonna try again. But I think, you lower the bar, you can have more people starting, and that's a really good thing. But I still have to wait and see if more companies being started, because the cost has been lowered, is guaranteeing better startups in the number of startups that are being better. And I think the answer so far is not really, because the amount of capital available for the Series A is pretty much the same. It hasn't changed much. So you have the swelling of number of startups being created, and then, as usual, half or 70% of them die really quickly. And then the guys that really hit those trends, those milestones and traction are going to receive funding. And by the way, the company needs less capital these days again. So when you read in the newspaper that, the venture industry in America is shrinking, they're raising less capital than last quarter, well, I don't think the overall amount of capital raised matters as much. It's how many companies can you finance with that capital? And the answer is a lot more than before, with the same amount of money. So if less money is being raised, it means also that the industry is changing. That you used to raise $500 million funds and $1 billion fund, which is no longer justified today when you do early stage investments. You have a lot of people running around with $50 million as a single general partners, making investments and cutting smaller checks.
So let's guess like a Corbin is thinking about moving to like a New York or let's get some like Silicon Valley.
Mm-hmm.
So how they are not let's guess that they didn't get like fund from Korean like VCs or angel investors, but you found out that this startup is a really good one.
Mm-hmm.
And are you really willing to like invest in accelerating them, even though they are not get funded from like Korean VCs, which means that they are not qualified?
Well, so
is one sort of so.
No, but that's a good question. So we don't see you being funded by another VC as being a signal that you're good or not good. We make our own analysis, and sometimes, and very often, we see that in Europe at least, we see a lot of VCs that look at a company and say, no, don't like it, too risky, and we are in Silicon Valley, we're like, no, I like that. They have a lot of proof points but for them, proof points means revenue, and for us, it means user engagement, right? And so the way you look at risk and you measure risk is very different depending on who you talk to and what your background and experience is. And so, no, we don't rely on the fact that, you didn't get funded here, so that means you can't get funded anywhere. I mean, funders have to be resilient and they have to find an audience. So no, that's not shutting the door for us. We certainly continue we look at you, but you need to be a fit. Maybe you're not a fit, by the way, for the Korean market. You might be a fit for Silicon Valley. Very often in Europe, I see companies that this guy, he has an API development platform and framework where you can not only host your APIs, but you can also develop APIs. He's in France. It's like half the time he has meetings, he has to explain to people what API stands for. In Silicon Valley, it's like it's a different conversation. So I say, yeah, you should not be in France, you should be here 2 years ago.
In this case, like the CEO of the corporate, even though only the CEO of the corporate, they'll go to the Silicon Valley, and you also invest in this startup so that they can develop their service from Korea, and the CEO is working on.
So no, there needs to be.
All need to move to.
Well, no. So not everybody needs to move, right? As I said, we keep the core developer and the team home, and we bring at least one founder. That's the requirements. At least one founder in Silicon Valley, and usually what happens is that from a role standpoint, Silicon Valley becomes the head. The heart is at home, and you use the head to do your product market fit in the American market, right? And very often, companies we work with are companies that are interested in developing their product for the US market. They have a better fit for the US market, right? It's a bigger potential in the United States. So we would not, for example, work with a company that has a good fit for the Korean market and force the founder to come to Silicon Valley if they are to focus on the Korean market. It makes no sense to us, and probably makes no sense to the company either. But if they want to go after the US market, and we think they have a great fit for the US market, but also globally. So maybe they can do the Korean market and the US at the same time, and by developing a product that is fitting both markets. And that's something Silicon Valley is really good at, by the way. It's actually thinking global in when they develop their products.
In this case, a little like practical question, like what would be the role of
Yeah.
the like founder in Silicon Valley?
So the key roles that a founder takes and the team in Silicon Valley will take is leading the product from the vision, the user interface, user experience standpoint. It's about the fundraising aspect, and it's about the strategic partnerships, right? So partnerships, fundraising, and product development as the lead and vision is going to be taking place from Silicon Valley very often, and then managing the office and the development back home. And so that's, it just makes sense. Most of the money is in Silicon Valley. You want to take hold into that ecosystem, and so getting investors from that ecosystem is an important angle. Partners are down the street, as I mentioned. And again, it's not just going to do business with them, it's about going partying with them, right? It's like, hey, you want to have a good time, you want to build personal relationships, you want people to like you for who you are in everyday life, but also offline, right?
So the other question is, what's the standard of the global potential that you just mentioned before? When you choose like a startup which can be successful in US market, what do you see the potential part? What are the guidelines or the criteria that you decide whether this is sort of working in US market or not?
Sure. It's what you do as a venture capitalist. I think as somebody that invests in companies, is that you're really good at patterns analysis. You're looking at what has worked somewhere else, what might work here. You look at a team. We work with early stage companies, so that means 3-4 people. They have a product. We can touch the product. Maybe they have 2 or 3 users that like the product. If they pay, great. If they don't pay, it's okay. So it's very early days, right? So you got to really believe in the team, in their vision and ability to build this, to be resilient and courageous enough that they're going to stand, the pressure. We have the benefit of sitting in Silicon Valley and seeing everything happening there, and so we tend to look for the things that are differentiated, right? Or a different take on a problem. And because we see many people, and that's the other thing entrepreneurs don't always realize, when you're an investor, you've got companies walking in your office all day long, telling you about their market, their vision, their opportunities. So very often, you get 2 or 3 entrepreneurs coming to you within a month or 2 or 3 months time frame, and they're all going after the same market. And yeah, they have differentiated approach, but pretty much going after the same opportunities. So you see that yes, there is an opportunity in this market, something needs to change, and I've got 2 or 3 guys that are trying to go after this market. And now the question becomes, who do I like the best? Who has the best qualities to go succeed in this market? And so it becomes very much like you're picking the team, right? You know the opportunity is there, and you're going to be picking the team. So that's what we look for. Again, it's like those patterns. There's no secret formula, and I think every investor will tell you that. It's you gotta look at the team's track record, or sometimes it's no track record. It's just, do they have experience and feeling empathy? People use empathy. It's like you need to put yourself in the shoes of your users, of your customers. I've been walking through their lives, and the pains they have usually makes you a better entrepreneur or somebody that can design a product that will fit their needs better.
So what was the main reasons of the failure that you brought from overseas, like Europe? There will be some stuff, right? What's the failure?
Yeah, so
what would be the main reasons that you saw?
we're still early in the days of Bootstrap Labs, so luckily we haven't experienced many failures, but we will.
Based on your experience, 14 years.
Yeah. Well, so I think what usually happens is, and I've seen that in a few people, entrepreneurs come, they're all excited, they speak their native language back home, they're very sharp and smart, and then they come to America and somehow the language is a big barrier, right? And that, as Koreans, I'm sure you can feel the pain because there's a big stigma with speaking English. You all can probably read and write better than I can in English, but somehow you can't speak it, or you don't dare to. I don't think you cannot, I think you don't dare to. But half of the battle is being able to communicate your ideas. It's about being able to sell in your product. And if you can't do that, you can have the best product in the world. If the world doesn't know, the world doesn't care, right? And so communication, very, very important. So if you want to build a startup in Korea, speaking Korean all the time, that's fine. But as soon as you start looking at outside markets, English is probably your best bet, right? And so we see people that are shrinking when they come to the United States. All of a sudden, usually they have this energy, they're so enthusiastic and smart about selling their businesses, and all of a sudden they come to America and they're shrinking, they're scared, they don't find the words, they are frustrated with themselves because they don't find the words, and that's an issue. Truthfully, it's an issue, right? When you have a meeting with an investor, you have one shot at making a good impression. And so that's tough when you can't communicate properly. And I experienced this firsthand when I moved from France. It's very hard to be yourself in a different language.
But you overcome it, right?
Yeah, you have to. I mean, if you don't overcome, then you move back, right? You leave, you quit, and that's fine. But so that's something we're careful about. The other times when we have struggles is with existing investors in companies that don't see eye to eye with the founder. We say, look, this company should be in Silicon Valley, and they say, no, they should stay here. They should get this big customer. It's going to give them some money, and it's going to be great proof points. And we're like, yeah, great. You're going to get $100,000 by the end of the year, and then you're going to turn yourself into a service company instead of focusing on the very important thing, which is building your product to really scale. So yeah, that's some of the things we.
What about the other reasons that you overseas you startup fail? Like language barrier? And
yeah, so
hard to find like co-founders or some like.
Well, usually the hiring is difficult in Silicon Valley, but we tend to work with teams, so they're usually past the stage of finding a co-founder. They already have a co-founder. They have already a core team that can build the product, and so. And by the way, when you fail to hire talented people, it's probably because your idea is not so good, right? But that's the tough part in Silicon Valley, is that a lot of people have a lot of good ideas. And so all of a sudden, you really compete for that. But, sure, hiring is a challenge, but I think the other aspect is not being able to raise capital. As I said, you could be failing at raising capital. And that's okay, I guess. Again, the market is telling you a signal. Either you're not pitching it right, you're not communicating well, or you're just going after something that makes no sense, only sense to you. So it's good to get validation from third parties, right? And that was one of my lessons as well when I started my business. At one point I was doing it all by myself from home. I was completely stupid. I'm like, what am I doing? I was like, yeah, I'm completely, I can do this. And this is the worst thing you can do. So being here, being in a place like this, surrounding yourself with like-minded people is very important. It's going to give you support, courage, and hopefully share information. It's going to help you develop your startup a lot faster.
So, how you want to help or invest or accelerating entrepreneurs penetrating the US market? So, what's your main strategy or?
Yeah, so I touched on that because I think it's relevant. We started with European deal flow. We work with European entrepreneurs. And we said, look, our model is global, and we decided to start venturing in Asia. And as a result of that, we looked at the marketplace, and we went to Southeast Asia because we felt the entire region was very exciting. And more importantly, we found a great partner to do business with. And so we opened an accelerator in Malaysia, in Cyberjaya. We're going to be having the first class of startup coming in early July. And our model, again, there is very different. We work for 12 months with companies. We help people from an idea, fleshing it out, and if it's something worth quitting your job for and you can assemble a team, we take you in. We work on building the minimum viable product, or what I like to call the minimum delightful product, which is a bit better. And then we try to really accelerate those companies by building partnership, distribution, focusing on user acquisitions. It's this whole, we really talk about execution. I don't want to be there teaching. Look, you should learn Lean Startup from Eric Rice, right? There's online video educations everywhere. So do the learning. I make it available to you. I bring it into Udemy and other online places so you can find it. And after 10 or 20 years in that space, I can point you to the ones that I thought were very helpful and valuable. So that will save you time. But you got to do that on your own. Right? When we work together with entrepreneurs, we want to focus on, okay, what are you going to do today that's going to make your product better? Or that's going to help you acquire more users, or that's going to help you sign the partnerships. Right? That's what we do every day with those companies. And so, because of my personal connection to Korea, through my wife, and I've been watching the market. I think the last 2 years have been fairly exciting, and I'm really looking forward to the next 5 years. I think I see some change happening in the marketplace. I see issues from a lot of unemployment among the youth, people graduating from schools and not finding jobs, right? I mean, the society has to evolve, and I think the youth is really kind of the engine of society. And so when they don't find an outlet in what they were told, they're going to need to find other outlets for their creativity, for their jobs. And startup is an interesting avenue. Not everybody is meant to be an entrepreneur. And so that could be risky to try to force everybody to become one. But at least you can try, or you can join other entrepreneurs, right? It doesn't have to be going work for the big companies. I mean, from France, it's the same story. We went through. We still have this vision.
Well, what about the friends? Your own country, they also like send their startup to the Silicon Valley? And government like push?
Well, so every government on earth has an office in Silicon Valley. They all want to push their companies to go to Silicon Valley, and I call that tech tourism. And that's okay. You come and you take pictures at the Facebook office, and you visit Google, and you learn a bit from the culture, but it's about setting expectations. Don't think you're going to come for a month or 3 months in Silicon Valley and you're going to be raising money from Sequoia, and you're going to be raising money from Andreessen. Not going to happen. I mean, the options are 1 in a million. So, but go learn, go meet people. Try to not score a quick win, but try to build relationships. Try to approach people that are meaningful to you in your industry, in your startup field, and connect with them. And again, spend the time to approach them in a meaningful way. People will respond. You'll be shocked. You can email, and by the way, the more senior the people are, the more likely they are to really respond if you approach them in the right way. Tap into. People want to teach. People want to feel good about giving back, about sharing what they know, and so that's something that's very strong in every human being in average. And so you can tap into that because you're going to learn a lot, and then maybe you come back once you realize Silicon Valley is very interesting. People are very receptive to my idea. Then maybe you can plan to go back. But again, you need to have a strategy. It's not just showing up and thinking it's going to happen.
One question is like, because of the visa problem, we cannot stay more than like 3 months. So,
Yeah.
what if?
That's why accelerators are 3 months.
Yeah.
I mean, earlier you asked me the difference between YC and
No, it's not.
500, but
What I'm asking is that, what if you want to stay in US for 3 months, guessing that you are the first time to visit there as an entrepreneur?
yes.
How are you gonna like stay for 3 months? How are you gonna like do business, and how you gonna spend time for 3 months as a first visitor
Sure.
to gain the maximize the result?
Sure.
Learn.
So again, prepare. Ask yourself, what do you want to achieve over there, right? And so, if you say forget raising money, you can still meet people at venture capitalist firm, ask for advice, ask for feedback, but don't ask for money, right? That's the silliest thing to do. They know you're coming in, and back home, people are not going to invest in people that are just transiting through Silicon Valley. So if they are kind enough to meet you because you have an interesting startup, and more likely they will actually meet you, great. Spend the time learning, ask a lot of questions, ask feedback. So try to meet and network with investors, go to a lot of parties, and even Bright is your best bet to source. There's 3 or 4 events every day. So go network. Use LinkedIn to approach people that are relevant to you and that have been doing things in your space that can help you. And you ask them to say, love to buy you coffee. I have a lot of respect for the work you've done. I think you can really help me with my startups, or I'm trying to figure this thing out. I think you have experience that could help me. Again, acknowledge that you don't know everything and that you are asking for help. Nothing wrong with it. And people will actually help you majority of the time. So I think that's the basic things you should do when you come is connect with people, learn a lot, and work on your product and see what others are doing. Again, I think nothing wrong. It's just about understanding what you're getting into and setting expectations, right? If you're trying to create success stories and having companies moving from whichever country they're from to Silicon Valley to become a big international success, because that's the kind of story that every country loves, then, and by the way, that pays a lot of dividends back home. It's not about brain drain and all the money staying in the United States. Actually, a lot of it comes back home. If you want to create that, then you need to let the natural selection process take place. You can't force it. but you need to help those entrepreneurs connect with the right people, right? You need to, if they don't know about YC, you need to introduce them to YC. If they don't know about BootstrapLab, come talk to us, right?
So I think what I feel about from Ben is he's truly helped us and believe in the vision, right? So about the speaker lineup, we made an access sheet and list all the like speakers that we're going to invite, which is really tough one, right? Including Jack Dorsey or whatever.
That's right.
So what I feel is that Ben is the truly guy that can help entrepreneurs to be successful in US market.
That's what we try to do. You know, I think people ask me, why do you do what you do when you're not doing your own startup? I think because I guess I like touching more than one startup, right? And I like to help more than one entrepreneurs. And why we do what we do is that if we can help someone achieve their vision and touch many people by giving them access to a new service, a new product, that's, you know, little ways, right? Making that dent in the universe is like kind of creating a legacy of leaving something greater behind. You know, if we make money at this, great, because, you know, everybody, you know, I think the money is just a result of the great work you do. But we all have this passion in us, which is we want to help entrepreneurs, we want to help people create great companies, create new products, changing the world. And in our own little ways, we try to share the information we have to help those people